Welcome to my channel. What if I told you that the single most powerful English learning tool in the entire world isn't an app, isn't a course, isn't even a teacher, but something so simple most people completely ignore it? It's a book, a page, a sentence sitting quietly in front of you, waiting to change your entire English forever. Today we're talking about the power of reading every day, and by the end of this video, you will never look at a simple page of text the same way again. Many English learners want to speak better English. They want more vocabulary. They want better grammar. They want confidence. They want fluency. But so many learners completely ignore one of the simplest and most powerful habits for improving English, and that habit is reading every single day. Reading may look simple. Reading may look slow. Reading may not feel exciting at first, but reading is one of the absolute best ways to fill your mind with real, living English. Every page you read gives your brain new words. Every sentence shows you exactly how English actually works. Every paragraph quietly teaches you grammar, structure, ideas, and natural expressions. And here's the truth most people never realize. You do not only learn English by memorizing rules, you also learn English by seeing English again and again and again. That is the real hidden power of reading. When you read every day, English becomes familiar, words become easier, sentences become clearer, ideas become stronger, and slowly, almost invisibly, your speaking begins to improve right alongside it. So, stay with me, because today we will discover exactly how daily reading can transform your English, grow your knowledge, and turn you into a far more confident learner. Listen carefully, learn deeply, and try to think in English as you listen, because every minute here is shaping the English speaker you are becoming. One of the biggest problems English learners face is vocabulary. They want to speak English, but they simply do not have enough words. They want to express their ideas, but the right words never seem to come. They understand something clearly in their mind, but the moment they try to say it in English, they feel completely stuck. And this happens to so many learners that they start memorizing long, exhausting word lists. 10 words today, 20 tomorrow, 50 next week. But after some time, they forget almost all of them. And the reason is simple. Those words were never connected to real meaning. They were just lonely words sitting on a page. Reading solves this problem in the most natural way possible. When you read, you do not learn words alone. You learn words inside sentences, inside stories, inside real living situations, and this makes vocabulary far easier to understand and remember. Imagine learning the word journey. If you only memorize its definition, you'll likely forget it within days. But if you read a sentence like, her journey to success was difficult, but she never gave up, suddenly the word has a feeling, a situation, a meaning, and you instantly understand how it's actually used in real English. And this is far more powerful than memorizing the word in isolation ever could be. Reading gives vocabulary life. It shows you how words behave inside real English. It shows you which words travel together. It shows you exactly how words are used naturally, and this matters deeply because English isn't only about knowing words, it's about knowing how to use them. Take the word make. You may already know this word, but through reading, you start noticing dozens of powerful combinations. Make a decision, make progress, make a mistake, make a plan, make someone happy, and suddenly your vocabulary doesn't just grow, it grows in usable patterns. Patterns that help you speak far more naturally than memorized lists ever could. Another quietly powerful effect of reading is repetition. When you read regularly, useful words appear again and again. The first time you see a word, it feels new and unfamiliar. The second time, it feels slightly familiar. The third time, you understand it more clearly, and after encountering it many times, that word becomes a permanent part of your memory. Not because you forced your brain to remember it, but because you gave your brain repeated natural exposure. And repeated exposure is exactly how real learning happens. Think honestly about how you learned words in your very first language. You didn't memorize them from a list, you heard them again and again, you saw them again and again, you understood them through real, lived situations, and English can grow inside you in exactly that same way. Reading every day gives your brain precisely the repetition it needs. And even if you read only 10 minutes a day, you are still feeding your brain real English. 10 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, 10 minutes the next day, and after 1 month, your brain has already seen hundreds or even thousands of English sentences. And after 1 full year, the effect can be nothing short of enormous. Many learners believe they need difficult books to truly improve, but that simply isn't true. And in fact, overly difficult books can actually slow you down. If every single sentence contains too many unknown words, reading quickly becomes stressful. You stop enjoying it, you stop understanding it, and before long, you quit entirely. The best reading material is something you can mostly understand already, easy enough to genuinely enjoy, yet sprinkled with just enough new words to help you grow. And that balance right there is everything. Simple stories, easy articles, short English lessons, beginner books, motivational paragraphs, everyday conversations, all of these can help you tremendously. So do not feel even the slightest bit ashamed to read Easy English because Easy English builds real confidence, Easy English builds genuine understanding, Easy English keeps you consistent, and consistency matters infinitely more than difficulty ever will. Another wonderfully useful habit is keeping a small vocabulary notebook, and when you read and discover a useful word, write it down. But don't just write the word alone, write the full sentence with it. Word, improve. Sentence. Reading every day can improve your English. This simple habit helps you remember the word inside real context. And afterward, you can create your own original sentence. Daily practice improves my confidence, and suddenly that word becomes active, alive, usable, because you're not just recognizing it anymore, you're actually using it. And that is the entire goal. A word becomes truly powerful only once you can use it confidently in your own speaking and writing. Reading also quietly teaches you which words are genuinely common. Some learners waste enormous time learning rare, complicated words nobody actually uses. But reading shows you exactly which words real people use constantly. Common words appear again and again, useful phrases appear again and again, and because you encounter them so often, they naturally become part of your own English. This directly helps your speaking too, because when you have more vocabulary available, you feel far less stuck. You can explain your thoughts more clearly, describe your feelings more precisely, share your ideas with far greater confidence, and that's exactly why reading isn't simply a reading skill. Reading quietly supports your speaking, your writing, your listening, and your ability to think in English, because everything in language learning is deeply connected. If you genuinely want to build vocabulary naturally, read every single day. Read simple content, read interesting content. Read content that truly matches your level. Don't rush, don't stress over understanding every single word. Focus only on the main meaning. Learn a few useful words, review them, use them, and repeat that process daily. Because vocabulary doesn't grow only through memorization. Vocabulary grows when you meet the same words again and again inside real, living sentences. Now, let's talk about grammar. Because when most people think about grammar, they immediately think about endless rules, complicated tenses, confusing formulas, and dense explanations. And because of this, grammar often feels difficult, boring, even exhausting. Many learners spend countless hours studying grammar rules, memorizing structures, completing endless exercises. Yet, when it's finally time to speak, they still make the exact same mistakes. And the reason is simple. Knowing a rule and actually using a rule are two completely different things. Reading quietly solves this exact problem. When you read regularly, your brain naturally starts noticing grammar on its own. You see correct English again and again. You see how sentences are built, how words work together. You see grammar in real, living action. Think about how a child learns their very first language. Children never learn grammar from textbooks. They simply hear language every day. They see language every day. And slowly their brain recognizes the patterns hiding underneath it all. And English learners can absolutely use this exact same process. Imagine reading hundreds of sentences like, I went to school yesterday, she watched a movie last night, they visited their grandparents, and after seeing examples like these again and again, your brain naturally starts recognizing the pattern of the past tense, often without you even consciously thinking about the rule itself. You simply know that it sounds right. And this is one of the greatest hidden benefits of reading. It quietly trains your grammatical instincts. Instead of constantly asking yourself, which grammar rule should I use here, you slowly begin feeling what sounds natural instead. And this is exactly how so many fluent speakers communicate. They've seen correct English so many times that proper grammar simply feels familiar and automatic to them. Reading also helps you deeply understand sentence structure. You learn how ideas are organized, how paragraphs naturally flow, how English speakers connect their thoughts together smoothly, and this makes your own speaking and writing significantly stronger over time. Another major advantage is that reading quietly reduces grammar anxiety because many learners are genuinely afraid of grammar, believing they must master every single rule before they're allowed to communicate, but that simply isn't true. Communication always comes first, and real improvement comes through steady exposure and practice. And reading provides exactly that kind of exposure every single day because the more you read, the more familiar grammar naturally becomes, and the more familiar grammar becomes, the easier English starts to feel overall. One of the biggest challenges English learners face is translation. So many learners think in their native language first, then mentally translate everything into English, and this process is slow, it creates hesitation, and it often makes speaking feel painfully difficult. Imagine wanting to say something simple. Before you even speak, you build the sentence in your native language first, then search for the right English words, then arrange them properly, then finally speak, and all of that quietly takes time and mental energy. Reading can help completely break this exhausting habit because reading exposes your brain directly to English itself, and the more English you read, the more familiar English naturally becomes, and instead of constantly translating, your brain slowly starts understanding English directly, which is an enormous step toward real fluency. Imagine reading a simple sentence, the weather is beautiful today. At first, you might translate it in your head, but after seeing similar sentences again and again, you understand the meaning instantly. No translation required at all. Your brain begins connecting English words directly to ideas. And this is exactly what fluent speakers naturally do. They don't translate every single sentence, they simply understand English directly, and reading is one of the most powerful ways to build that exact ability. Reading also fills your mind with useful English patterns, patterns that become instantly available the moment you speak, because when you need to express an idea, your brain remembers sentences and structures it has already seen before, making communication feel far smoother and more natural. Think about how often you read phrases like, I would like to, in my opinion. The reason is, as a result, and after seeing these patterns again and again, they become deeply familiar, and eventually you begin using them naturally in your own conversations, which is exactly why dedicated readers so often become stronger, more confident speakers. Their minds are simply full of useful, ready to use language. Reading also quietly creates an English environment inside your own brain, and even if nobody around you speaks a word of English, reading still allows you to spend real time with the language every single day, constantly exposing yourself to English thoughts, English ideas, English expressions, and over time, English begins feeling less like some distant foreign language and far more like a completely natural way to communicate. Many learners feel nervous simply because English feels unfamiliar to them, but reading changes that completely. The more familiar English becomes, the less intimidating it feels. Words become easier to recognize, sentences become easier to understand, ideas become easier to express, and confidence grows naturally and quietly in the background. Many English learners share the exact same frustrating problem. They understand some English, they know plenty of vocabulary, they've studied grammar carefully. Yet, the moment it's time to actually speak, they suddenly feel completely stuck. Their mind goes blank, their words disappear, their confidence disappears right along with them, and speaking suddenly feels far harder than it should. One major reason this happens is simple: they aren't getting enough English input. Because speaking is fundamentally an output skill, and before your brain can produce strong English, it first needs to receive a tremendous amount of English, and reading is one of the absolute best ways to provide exactly that input. Every time you read, you fill your mind with English words, English sentences, and English expressions, and think of it like a water tank. If no water ever enters the tank, eventually it runs completely empty, and language works in precisely the same way. If you never feed your brain English, speaking naturally becomes difficult. But reading consistently fills your language tank, and the more quality English you read, the more language your brain has ready and waiting the moment you need to speak. Imagine reading stories every single day, repeatedly encountering useful expressions, repeatedly seeing natural sentence structures, repeatedly noticing common vocabulary, and after a while, these patterns become deeply familiar. And then something genuinely remarkable happens. You begin using them naturally when you speak, not because you forced yourself to memorize them, but simply because your brain has already seen them so many times before. Many learners mistakenly believe speaking only improves through speaking practice, and while speaking practice is certainly important, reading quietly supports speaking in powerful, often invisible ways. Reading gives you ideas, reading gives you vocabulary, reading gives you sentence structures, reading gives you confidence, and the more you read, the easier it naturally becomes to express yourself clearly. Think about someone who reads every single day for an entire year. They've seen thousands of English sentences, thousands of useful phrases, thousands of examples of natural communication, and when they finally speak, their brain has an enormous library of English ready to draw from. But now imagine someone who rarely reads at all. Their exposure is far smaller, their language library is far smaller, and as a result, speaking often feels significantly harder for them. Reading also quietly improves sentence flow because many learners speak in short, disconnected, choppy sentences. But reading teaches you exactly how ideas connect naturally together. You learn how to explain, how to describe, how to tell a story, how to share an opinion clearly, and all of these skills directly help you become a far stronger speaker, which is precisely why so many strong speakers are also dedicated lifelong readers. Confidence is one of the single most important parts of learning English, and many learners genuinely know more English than they realize. Yet they lack the confidence to use it, they doubt themselves, they fear making mistakes, they worry endlessly about what others might think, and as a result, they stay quiet, they avoid conversations, they avoid valuable opportunities to practice. Reading can change this, not overnight, but gradually and very powerfully, because every you understand a little more English, every time you finish a page, you prove to yourself that real learning is happening, and every time you understand a paragraph, your confidence quietly grows just a little stronger, and these small victories matter far more than most people realize. Reading also teaches a remarkably valuable lesson that mistakes are simply part of learning. You won't understand every word, you won't understand every sentence, and that is genuinely okay. Strong readers continue anyway, focusing on the main idea, focusing on gradual progress, and this mindset reduces unhealthy perfectionism because confidence isn't about believing you know everything. Confidence is about believing you can keep learning. And every single page you finish quietly strengthens that belief a little more. Beyond language itself, reading gives you something far bigger: real knowledge, fresh ideas, and entirely new ways of thinking. Every book, article, or lesson contains information that can genuinely help you grow, allowing you to learn from people who lived centuries ago, from successful entrepreneurs, scientists, teachers, and travelers whose lives look nothing like your own, all without ever leaving your chair. Knowledge like this quietly improves your decision making, sharpens your critical thinking, and gives you far more to talk about in every English conversation you'll ever have, which is exactly why so many successful people remain lifelong readers. The real secret, however, isn't reading for hours, it's reading consistently, because even just 10 minutes a day can create remarkable, life changing results over time. 5 pages daily becomes 35 pages weekly, which becomes over 150 pages monthly, which becomes thousands of pages across a single year. And small, consistent habits like this quietly build extraordinary long term success. So, today we discovered the true hidden power of daily reading, how it builds vocabulary naturally, strengthens grammar without endless memorization, trains your brain to think directly in English, makes speaking dramatically easier, builds genuine confidence, expands your knowledge, and ultimately helps create a stronger, wiser version of yourself, one page at a time. You don't need hours, you don't need difficult books, you simply need to start. One page, one paragraph, one small daily habit, repeated faithfully, because every single page you read today is quietly building the confident, fluent English speaker you are becoming tomorrow.